Hey, I'm Michael Wright, and this is Ivy Manor here in beautiful Muscle Shoals, Alabama. We're actually in the city limits of Sheffield. Been here since 2019, and amongst other things, it's named for one of my great old family friends and a dear friend named Quinn Ivy, who was the producer of When a Man Loves a Woman by Percy Sledge. And his home back in 1966, when that record was made, is within sight. It's right across the street. I knew I wanted to put the studio in Sheffield because I have a real affinity for Muscle Shoals sound. My dad was really friendly with the four guys that were known as the Swampers. He grew up with them and he ran with them. And I walked in and I stood right here and I looked up at this ceiling, which is nearly 100 years old at this point, and I said, people will want to make records right here. Walked around the house and could sort of picture how the studio would lay out, how the dining room would make a great control room, and it feeds into a kitchen where everybody can hang out. It was built by a wealthy doctor in 1927. It's really robust construction, which suits well for a studio. This whole floor really is Studio A. You know, this is a place where everybody can just be comfortable. We find that people walk in here and close the door behind themselves, and this just becomes like home for them. And that was always the intention. Here's our primary mixing space, right? So we mix down here. Most everything that gets mixed in this room. This SSL was built in 1981 for Bob Marley's son, Stephen. We really were jonesing to have more inputs and more flexibility. And so having the Pro system now makes a huge difference in the quality of our sessions. The sound quality, we noticed an immediate difference. I mean, that we have phenomenal sounding headphones. When you take your system and combine it with what we've done with electrical and grounding in this facility, we think we have the best sounding headphones in town. Also, again, the flexibility of the system, being able to, assign inputs and outputs easily on the fly. We have the overlays, being able to name things easily, put people's names on things, the intercom function, you name it.
I produce records, I write songs, I'm an artist. Me along with Michael, Dan, Clint, and Jared, we're all equal fifths of this wonderful production team that we have here at Ivy Manor Studios. I pushed so hard for that. There are a lot of great monitoring systems out there, but none that I found that suits my hearing as well as Hear Back. Until we got this particular, the Pro, I was having to, anytime I stack vocals or stack a guitar part, I was having to have the engineer do the panning for me or whatever, set my mix exactly like I wanted it. Now I can dial this in with panning and volume controls that are perfect for my recording needs. This is the only one for me. A lot of times I'll be sitting in the sitting on the floor and I'm recording and I'm not singing, I'm actually just playing electric guitar. So there are no microphones out here. And then people be in the control room talking. And I'm like, what chord were we supposed to play though? What beat, what bar? And I'm sitting here, there's no microphones. The old headphone boxes didn't have it. Now, this is my favorite feature. Sometimes I can be serious and I can hit the intercom button and I can just ask a serious question. And sometimes I can just say, stop with all the gobbly-goo. And then they'll just stop and then we're back to recording mode. That is a very, very handy feature. Keeps the band on the floor connected. A lot of times we have musicians that are on a completely different floor in a room where we can't see each other. They're line in instead of mic'd. And so they have no way to communicate with us until this. And this is a wonderful, wonderful feature.
I will say one of the things I really appreciate is that the software is now on the computer and not on our phones. I love being able, on the computer. I just did this the other day when I was setting up for this session. We can go right in, we can see everything, change the labels on the boxes for the artist name that's out there. If we've got a big session, say we're doing a 16 mic drum setup and full band or something like that, we can spend the better part of a day just doing setup. A lot of cables to run, a lot of mics to put up, a lot of things to fax out in the system. But headphones are the thing that now goes the fastest, right? Because we just go right into the software, where are the boxes, what are the names? And we've kind of, over time, gotten to a place where we have a standard setup of kick and snare and the rest of the drums on the top line, and then bass and 3 guitars and a stereo keys feed. We do a feed that we call tracks, and we got a couple of floaters. Talkback always on channel 16, so people have individual control of the level of talkback coming back to them. We keep click on 15 all the time, so click is always in the same place. So we have a standard configuration inside of Pro Tools that assigns those outputs, and a standard configuration inside of Hear Back that labels everything, so we can do our standard headphone setup in seconds. And then we just use sends inside of Pro Tools to send out all those feeds to the Hear Back system. Another thing that's actually been really great, and it came into play this week when we had an equipment failure on another side, because we're using the ADAT I/O and it's all digital, we had no change in configuration required. The headphones didn't cost us 1 extra minute to make a change. In the old days with analog, we would have had to move stuff and change patching, but with the digital connections, we were right there. It's been a great addition to the studio.